Okay, now we can begin with our class. And today we're going to be reading our stories, and we already have the list. So, Edson, you wanted to be first, right?
Yes.
Don't forget that your story has to be in Drive.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Mm, ¿Comparto la pantalla o así?
Share screen, please.
Mm, Can you see?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, I'm Carlos, and I'm going to tell you the story about how I met the other one. It was a good day. I remember that I was doing my homework before I had to go to my job. I studied cybersecurity, and probably that was my mistake. I work in a fast food restaurant, or at least I used to. The environment was nice. The entire restaurant worked together. Sometimes I fell asleep in the restaurant and I had dreams, or I thought they were dreams, where the people was telling me what they wanted to eat, and I just turned around and go out. When I woke up, my coworker said that I didn't need to do that, and I just said that I'm sorry that and the customers treated me so bad, and I didn't know why. One day I woke up like another day, but this day felt weird, like someone else was in my house. So I started to call that person, but there was no answer. So I checked my house and nothing was out of place except for my laptop. When I looked at my laptop, I started to see messages about how a person wanted that I hack a company, and I answered a few hours later, giving him the information he wanted. I didn't believe that I did it because I was sleeping, so I started to see all the conversation, and it all happened in 5 hours. In 5 hours, I did something that I can't believe. I remember how I didn't get out of my house that day. I was so scared that someone was waiting for me outside. All I could think about that day was what could happen if someone knew I did that. I fell asleep thinking about it, and in my dream, someone who looked exactly as me told me that he did the job clean. No one could find us, and if I continued searching, he would take control and leave trapped inside. When I woke up, it was another day, and for some reason, I didn't search for more, even if what happened in my dream. I do my day as always, but in one moment I was working, and in another I was in my house watching a movie. I didn't know what happened, so I checked my phone and I had a lot of messages from my boss telling me that I got fired. I go to the bathroom to take a shower and process what happened that day. When I got out and looked in the mirror, my reflection told me that we didn't like the job. I got scared and ran to my bed. Then it was another day, but I wasn't in my house. I was in my parents' house. I asked my mother how long I was there, and she told me that I've been there for 1 week because I lost my job. I was shocked. I lost 1 week and I didn't know why and what I've been doing all the time. I went to my house and everything was exactly as I remembered. I looked in the mirror and my reflection told me that I'm so weak and he's going to take control. And that is how I met the other one. I've been fighting with him to take control. I see all the things he had done and I couldn't stop him. And now that I take control, I'm writing this to let the people know. Stop him. He's dangerous with his laptop. No one can stop me. You are weak and I'm strong. That's all.
Excellent. So tell me, how did you feel writing a suspense horror story?
Mm, Strange. It's not my favorite.
But it was good, it was interesting.
I have a lot of problems with the creativity, but there
You
is.
couldn't notice.
Yes.
So I have your grade.
And
Yes. Now I need you to participate more on our Grammar Wednesdays.
oh, sí, sorry, teacher, es que como voy a la escuela y luego es como que se pierde el internet. Me está saque.
Yes. We need to find a way of seeing how we can solve that because it's
Yes,
very important your participation on Wednesdays.
yes.
Okay, you have a 9.
Thank you, teacher.
Excellent. So who wants to be number Monty? Come on, you cannot be number 3. You're gonna be number 2.
Ah,
Yes.
okay. Uh, okay, sure. You can see.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, my story is in the closet. Long time ago, a family, like many others, suffered a lot for an economic problem in the United States. They lived in Oregon. The father worked in a printing company, and the mother in a beautiful clinic. But now they had to stretch their salary to live every month. Also, they lived in one of the most expensive states in the United States. The situation was difficult. They had to move a place more accessible, like Kansas, in a lower middle class house. George, the son of the family, is now 26 years old, but at that time, he was only 8 years old. He tells us when he set up foot in that house, he felt very bad. He felt anxious, as if something very bad thing could happen at any moment. The first days, the atmosphere was very tense, but 2 weeks after move, he went with his parents screaming in early morning. George was scared and googled his dog Bruno, and thanks to Bruno, George had credibility. His parents don't believe him. It's very easy to ignore a child. It's very easy to think what explained is something else. But put yourself in the place of the parents, and maybe even you will think that way, because George crying said, to close it slowly, open it in the dark, as if there was someone inside it. It's easy to attribute that to stress of moving, new school, new friends, etc. But why Bruno barking so furiously at the closet? Maybe George opened the closet out, out of stress. Maybe it was the breeze. His story was very strange. Also, affected with the move, the fathers become more aggressive, but the mother was more understanding. She asked for details, and the kids say the same thing at least 2 or 3 times a week. And we was and it was not just the closet itself. Sometimes woke up and the closet was already open. But now a horrible old man appeared, staring from his side. One day he heard his parents arguing because the mother believed in George, but that disliked the father, and not only that, also said she felt a very strange presence in the house, something unpleasant. George explains today without Bruno and then mother support, he can take it. But not everything was negative. On a day, the father was sting with the lower, and the guy who selling the house signing the last payment. And then the George fathers asked, where is the key that controls the water tank in the house? I'm sorry, don't know. How I tell you then, I never leave it there. Answer, answer the owner. Hmm, you have no idea? No, no, no. I did not spoke with my father. No one my children's near him. When the father died, the son inherited the house, and now he was selling it. Then George's father asked of curiosity, you didn't want your children near their grandfather? What happened to you that my father was a damn? It's a pedophile who died of cancer. The father reading the news learned from the tales that horrible old man had a shield content in the closet inside the room where his son sleeps. After many months later, the father sold the house. So during those months, George slept in the parents' bed. Now, George never forget that horrible experience. He remembered that today. Okay. Y algunas palabras se me invirtieron porque dislexia. Como, hubo como 4 que me di cuenta, perdón.
Yeah. Yeah, I also notice them. You have out, but you begin with UOT. You've got a couple of them.
What? No entendí, perdón, me trabó.
Que sí tienes unos cuantos.
Ajá, que se me invirtieron, sí, perdón, tengo dislexia, entonces se me van. Me encontré como 4 o 5 por ahí, perdón.
Sí, no te preocupes. Okay, Monty, so your grade, and you know what you have to turn in before the end of the day. If not, that's gonna go down. It's 9.3.
9.
It was a good story, and you've been participating. I like that, Monty.
Okay, thank you so much, teacher.
So continue doing it, and you will continue having nice grades. Okay?
Okay, of course.
But if you do not turn that in, your grade will go down.
Okay, see?
Okay.
Yes.
Good. After Monty, we have Rodri.
Yes, teacher.
And after that, we're going to have Santi Martinez.
Okay, wait. I'm coming out. Okay. Sorry. The devil's grandmother. It all started one day when I was coming back from school. I was excited that today my father and my mother would go on a trip. I thought I was late to pick them up at my grandmother Karina's house because in Mexico City there is a lot of traffic. I arrived just on time. I could observe my grandmother with an angry face. She doesn't like to go on trips, saying she thinks they are going to live here alone. I, since my dad was in hurry, I couldn't agree my grandmother. So we ran to airport, but when we were arriving at the airport, my mother said that she had forget the tickets. So I told her, I can go back to my grandmother's house quickly and come back on time. She said yes. When I go to the house, that I realized that it was all dark.
I assumed that my grandmother had gone somewhere, so I decided to go get to the plane tickets quickly. Begin pacing the rooms quickly, I will observe that my grandmother had not left, but that she is sitting on the floor and zipping around here. There were black candles, and she was tiki, taking, talking a strange language and a very different voice to hear. I was shocked, but I thought I was hallucinating, so keep looking for the plane tickets. Since I found them, I returned to the same room and say that there was no one or anything. So I left more relaxed. I ran at the door to leave. I found my grandmother with an errand bag that apparently was dripping something, but I don't realize it was. My grandmother said to me a little nervously, "What are you doing here? Tell me, tell me if you say something strange." To which I answered no, and that I had to leave because I was late. When I go to the car, I look at the towards the house and say that strange look that my grandmother has. I hurried to the airport, but I was thinking that if it was real what I had seen, and that double left puzzling. I arrived at the airport and handed the tickets to my parents and returned home. Afraid my grandmother was waiting in the door with mocking look. When I wanted to enter, I said, "Hello, Grandma. How are you?" She didn't no answer me, and only looked at me with mocking face. Suddenly, she said, "Are your parents?" To which I replied, "Well, at the airport, I guess. The plane has already taken off." She said a very voice, "I don't think." And I was thinking, and when I was going to get into the house, suddenly my parents came discussing that had been there found that the plane failed. Then my grandmother going to the house with a smile and a mocking. And I was more puzzled and listened to my mother say to my father in a loud voice, "It was your mother. She always wishes just evil and always wants just to do what she wants." My mother went into the house furious, and my dad went with on the friends in the colony. Uh, the hours passed, and I just kept thinking about I say and what here because my parents acted so strange, and above my grandmother, and if what I say was the real. Suddenly, he heard my mother arguing with my grandmother. My mother say at my grandmother, "Why don't you live just alone? I'm sick of you. Leave Luis. It's a really big leave you alone." She's repeated it over again and again. And my grandmother just looked at the here and lawyers. The days passed and my mother fell in with a strange illness, and my father had a car accident. I stayed alone with my grandmother. My grandmother went daily to visit my father while he took care of for my mother. When my mother was more or less well, I could hear say that she was my grandmother, but I thought I was dreaming and I was hallucinating. The days passed, and neither of my two parents recovered some days well. I was alone into the house, swore to see things or hear voices. I thought I was going too crazy. I decided to buy those cameras and microphones like in paranormal movies. 2 weeks passed and nothing, only sometimes the camera turned off when my grandmother passed by. I thought they were filing science, they very cheap cameras. My parents still did not approve. I am no longer knew what to do. That same night, I hear strange sounds, and I thought, well, tomorrow I will steal what it was. The next day, I went into the shock to see what those strange sounds were. It was my grandmother strangely and doing away with black candles like that time. Scar, I want to ask if anyone knew playing about it, and no, oh no.
You can do it. You're almost there. I believe in you, Jordi. Okay?
Okay, what?
I believe in you, Rodri. You can do it.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay. Ayúdame que de... por aquí me quedé. Sí, sí, sí. No, no. Madre mía. Okay. I came out of there thinking, what will I do? I arrived at my house with the feeling of facing her, but to my surprise, there was no light in the whole colony. I decided to enter the house. I ran to my mother's room because I heard some strange noises. To my surprise, there was no one in my mother's room. I started looking, and there was blood everywhere. I worried and started looking like crazy for my mother in the process. I started hearing that evil voice all over on the house. Hurried, and suddenly I saw a blood stain that was heading towards the kitchen. My mind began to believe that my mother was no longer there. My legs ran out of strength because when I was going to enter the kitchen, I heard a, a, a low voice and was praising you to hear a very weak voice. It was here. It was my mother with her leg injured. I did want to ask her anything, just take here, and I went to exit to take her. Every time we approached to exit, she heard more and more. The doors and windows began to close for no reason. Suddenly, everything became dark and the voice stopped. The house began to smell like a gas, and my mother to told me to run, since she was going to explode. the wall house. She had a lighter in the hand. I told her no, not to wait. We hid in the living room in silence. My grandmother was looking for you, saying that she needs you for the ritual. The ritual. My mother begins to fall asleep. Since she had lost a lot of blood, I say I say windows where my mother and go through ourselves to escape. When I was about to do so, my grandmother addressed me saying, "You cannot escape for me because you are already marked." She began to laugh like crazy. I stopped to confront her, but when I turned, her face was discolored and black shadow. Begin here. The shadow touched my grandmother. The begins that was previously my grandmother. The take to opportunity to throw my mother out the windows when she fell into the garbage, made a lot of noises. Then my grandmother took me by the throat and began to draw. She began to speak very strange in that language. I was trying to take the light at the moment to throw it, but I count already run out of or out. But in the end, I must kick my grandmother through with me out of the window and the same time throw with the lighter into the shade. And when I was falling in her, the worst scream, I screamed that was scary. The house exploded, causing me ankle to fracture. The house began to burn down when the fire reaches the whole house in Ingles more, but with some purple flames. For a moment, they become normal when the neighborhood began to out to see what happened. Uh, we went to the hospital with my dad, since he had woken up. Tell me everything that had happened. What happened with mom, and had to tell him what happened with my grandmother. Ultimately, she arrived and finished.
Excellent, Rodri. It's actually a very good story. And I
Thank you.
love how you leave it in a cliffhanger.
What? ¿Cómo? Perdón.
Me gusta cómo lo dejaste en suspenso.
Sí.
Good. Okay, I just need you to you didn't turn in a lot of your work during this month.
Mhm.
So you have 8.7.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes, teacher.
So next. Uh, uh, um, Santi Martinez.
Okay. Um, I search my screen. You can see that, teacher?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. A while ago, in a small convenience lived a little girl named Amelia. She's very intelligent, but she's shy about people. She has an older brother who tells her has a story of a terror and demons. One day, She was playing in the park of the condominiums with his friends, but his mother told him to go to the dinner a rich slice of tamal cake with his milk. When Judge has dinner, she went to brush her teeth and then to sleep, because tomorrow she had left to go to play with her friends in the afternoon. The next night in the morning, she went down to the garden of her condominium to rest there for a while and look for shapes in the clouds to pass the time. When it was 12 in the afternoon, she went up to her house to have lunch, a delicious sandwich that her mother made her. And at the end, she went back down to her garden because that is where she stayed to meet up with her friends. Then everyone went to the park of the honeymoon, but Wisham calmed down. She saw a swing in the garden, but that was a only plastic table. When she was younger, she played with her dolls and left table and they sat down with her friends. When her friends arrived, everyone could see the swing, but they better decided to go to play for a while in the park. When they finished playing, everyone went home, and Amelia decided to go see wal- if he followed the swing of just imagining it. But when she got to his garden, she was a child playing on the swing. When she came to see who it was, and the child began for chase her through all the condiments, but no one could see the boy and they just saw the girl running without any sense. She didn't know what to do, so she tried to hide in her house. But when she last expected it, the boy was waiting for her at the door of her house. So she ran away to a small forest of the canyon. But when she entered, everyone became bigger, as if the forest had no end, and she could only see the building when she turned it. But she saw it more and more in the distance. When she could hide in the forest, she only heard the branches breaking from when the child paced. At the moment, she remembered that his brother Hall told him about the story of a demon that made children appear in various places, and that with uh, in various places, and that without the took people. So when she remembered all that, she took branches and made a crucifix to try to face the child. Already when she was ready, she approached without fear and began to pray that it would not hurt her. And the child gradually went back, and at a certain point the child disappeared completely. Not knowing what happened, Amelia returned home to try to rest, and when her brother arrived from the street, she told him what happened to the child, and her brother told her that when he was his age, something similar happened to him in the same condominiums, but that it was only once, and then nothing happened. Since that day, she prefers to rest in the park so that everyone can see what she's doing. And that's all.
Excellent. Throughout the month, Santi, you missed a couple of participations.
Sorry.
Okay, but still, you did a very good job in the month. You've got 9.7.
Okay, thanks, teacher.
Excellent. Who's next? Or do I start calling people?
Me, teacher.
Okay, go ahead, Fabian. And then I
Yes.
think Anna wants to go after Fabian. Okay. So just write your name on the chat and
Let me see. Déjeme. Nada más, I have a situation. I Zoom in my mobile, so I couldn't share my document. So can I reading you?
do you have it up on your drive?
Yes,
It's in your drive,
yes,
so I'll share it.
yes. Please, thank you. Yes, that's it. I'm going to read. Okay. On a school excursion, doorway is strange because displaying he was on fall and without knowing why he was wearing a vest which helps him to live fortunately. The next day he finds an island where it was small but this was difficult to explore since there was too many places. But then noticed something strange. Almost no animals were had, which made him think he was alone. But what he did, but no, it was he had something else that was observing him. And that was the synopsis, sorry. Dawes is a boy who was leaving for an excursion to the United States from his was a trip in the school had organized, and they did to post scholarships and interest in studying in the United States. The problem was that during the transfer, the plane crashed and he ended up on the island. He arrived alone and he didn't know how to get there. He didn't know how to contact someone on the island, but it was big, so he was going to explore. There were only four people. Fortunately, there were only bitten but so serious injury. The situation was that they did not find any more than the completions. There were remains of the plane, but only the rear part. So then deduced that the race in the sea, which made it to start to make a refuge, but we don't know alone. Without realizing, John disappears, avoids who was with them who were strange they went to look for him, almost amongst all with idea of getting lost, the thus not having a kind of problem. But really what they got was more fear because they began to see parts of the body to see really did not understand that he was having a good time first one hand later, then saw the rest of his arm, rest of his foot, and then they arrived to handing on disappeared tree. At the moment we returned to the camps and we didn't move because we were scared. Apart from Norway, there was also Chelsea. There was a girl from England who was looking to go to the United States and another boy named Michael, known from the name school for the same school. Where Turway went, they were just as worried without having an idea what to do. And then was Turway said he would I was better to the shore of the island because that is where you can get to see a ship or a plane to request from the island where it was in our mind and they will not to see anything. So in that moment, take everything that you have and leave fast. When Darwin arrived to the shore, luckily the first one who arrived was Michael did not arrive immediately as change arrived, and what they didn't was worry about rings too. What Doorway did was start throwing plays, waiting for someone to see that whereas it is, but the situation was the only thing that attracted Doorway was the thing, and it was when he began to run all over the shore of the island. Has felt that something was coming, something was chasing, was at a very fast speed, fast, and it was possible to feel running. The thing reached Ship's doorway, kept running, and that moment he saw as a Navy ship was going to arrive without understanding because we only know that it was salvation. Then say how they were talking Chelsea and how to were going her in. There was no way because I just wanted to hear and wait to ship from the Navy to arrive the moment it arrived. He got on and said, let's run for the island. This island is something that is going to make us die. For companies were for companions were with me and they left. They just died because something is changing us. I don't know what is it, but at the moment when they say it, the transporter panicked, decide better to leave, just because the only survivor to continue, and it was were to quietly death, but with an idea of never wanting to return, never leave, just because this house because is the feeling that invaded it, and then later they only ask him if he wants to investigate to it without him being there because it's not something that no longer knew how to solve. And that's all.
Good. How did you feel writing this story?
Uh, I think it's not my strong ability to do histories.
But did you enjoy it at least?
I think enjoy to think the history because I'm see mm, a lot of movies to horror, and I think is the best way is something like that.
Okay, so you have some things missing from the present participle, and also the reading from the story is not complete.
Yes, I left some part in the last, but I reduce when you tell me reduce the parts, but I think it's better in some points.
Okay, you have a 9 for this month.
Okay, thank you, teacher.
Very well with participation. Okay, Anna.
Yes. Mm,
The ones who do not finish this class can do it next class, but your grades will already be in. Lo repito en español. Los que no alcanzaron a leer en esta clase, lo van a leer el miércoles. Nadie se salva de hacer esa parte. Pero ya estarán todas sus carpetas del Drive revisadas para entonces. Entonces, no es que tienen días más para subir las cosas. Todo lo que está en el Drive se revisa hoy. Simplemente quedaría pendiente la lectura de sus historias, en caso de que no lleguen a decirlas hoy. ¿Ok? Excellent, Anna. The floor is yours.
okay. It all starts in the south of the United States, specifically in Memphis, Tennessee, with a young man with brown and curly hair, thin and white complexion. He lived quietly in a common neighborhood on the suburbs of the city. He was a reserved person. His only two friends lived far from there because of his parents' work. He always had to move. And at the school, he didn't participate much because he had nothing very interesting to say. His name is Tim Hutter. One day, any other team left home heading to school. He said goodbye to his parents, took his things, and began to walk. The cold autumn atmosphere was beginning to be felt, but he cared very little. He put some music on his cell phone and headphones, and in his ears. He thought about what the long day would be like today and what was waiting for him. In less than 20 minutes, he has already at the entrance of the school. He walked slowly to the classroom and sat down in his seat. Shortly after, the teacher of the subject came in calling the attention of his students. Well, today will begin the final project of the subject. Tim rolls his eyes with annoyance because the teacher was a believer in teamwork for social existence. I hope you are ready. I have the teams. The teacher took a small notebook and began to give the teams most of the students were already assigned until it was Tim's turn. Jet Carter, Michelle Edwards, Victor Hill, and Tim Hunter. You are the last team. The students looked at each other. That's all. The work should be ready tomorrow in my office. The professor took his cell phone and said no more words. Tim got up from his place and walked reluctantly towards his team. Jack and Michelle were very close friends since they were kids. The whole school knew it, and that, and thanks to their style and way of life, they were among the most popular. On the other hand, Victor was a boy very similar to him. The only thing that made them different was that Victor was an excellent student. He always got the best grades. Whereasing he followed the path. When he arrived, the others partly noticed his presence. He took a seat near them and began to listen to their ideas. I think it's a good idea to make it about paranormal moments. The only girl in the group started with the ideas. It goes according to the theme of dark photography that the professor has given us. It's a good idea, but shall we tell your experience? Victor joining. No, the best thing will be to recreate them. He made a little doubtful face and then nodded. I got it. We can make a movie. The job is due tomorrow, Mitch. We won't have time. Jack tried to bring her back to the reality, but Michelle denied. We have plenty of time. If we don't do it from today, my last class is in a couple of hours. If everyone agrees, we can go to your house and film there, insisted the girl. My house? Jack raised an eyebrow, double fully. Come on, Jack. Your father is on a trip and I have enough materials there to work with. Michelle made puppy dog eyes and Jack had no other option but to agree. I knew it. I know you were going to accept. Do 2 hours work for everyone? We all nodded at the same time. Perfect. See you at this address. He took a piece of paper and wrote it in down. Bye. I took the paper. 56 05 Holmes Crest, LN, Memphis, Tennessee. 38. I don't know.
118.
Yes, this.
38,118.
Okay. Put it away and say goodbye to Victor.
No. You have to say it. Say it back to me. 3800, 118.
3800, 118 or 18.
Yes.
Okay. put it away, and said goodbye to Victor to go to my next class. 2.5 hours later, I was standing on my front of the gate of what my brain classified as a mansion. It was a much bigger than the house where my parents and I lived. We rang the doorbell, feeling a little intimidated by the imposing deep live with deep welling. Soon, Jack, wearing black makeup and red contact lenses, appeared at the door. Tim entered the house, take, taking care of his steps inside. It was very well decorated. It seemed to be abandoned, but in really the care and the fake cobwebs have a way that it wasn't like that. Nick and John are the chair of decorating every year. My father spends a lot of money on the decoration alone. Nick and John were the Jack's younger brothers. He continued guiding me to the house that was really big until we arrived to a kind of a game room where Michelle, Victor, and next to them we have art. Where are all kinds of those games to my mind? What is that for? I pointed to the table where the board was without even saying hello. This? Or well, I thought, what if it doesn't look real? We have a Jack as a ghost, but I don't know think is enough. He made a sign of not caring. Come, come on, sit down. I have the camera ready. I, I don't know. Okay. Where without taking much more importance, I took a seat next to him and we started first. We started first. Victor lit the candles, Jack turned off the light, and Michelle began to talk to Edward. Is there anyone there? The stone began to move to where the words yes were. I was a little scared, but I have to admit it was for the sake of work. The girl in the group continued asking basic questions like, what is your name? Did you live there? Um, do you need help? In a moment, the atmosphere became heavy, somewhat tense, and a chill ran through everyone's body wherever it was. It didn't what you there. It started to give the windows, though the glass figures that Jack's family had in the first place. And finally, one of the candles fell accidentally, setting fire to part of the table. Victor managed to grab a fire extinguisher, and put it out before it was too late. We sing but when everything seemed to relax, we heard a piercing scream from the top of the house. When we entered the room, we found the youngest of the family full of scratches. Some of them were bleeding, and the little boy was crying, hugging his leg. When his brother saw him, he ran up to him to hug him and calm him down. Suddenly, we heard footsteps again, long, loud. We have 20s, I said to Michelle. She nodded, and we all went down to the living room once again. Michelle tried to close the portal that had been created, but it was too late. The downstairs was burning in flames. Surely we forgot a candle to put out. We all quiet, scared. We ran to the upstairs. The fire was advancing rapidly against us. We found around 5 in the pool of the house and decided it was the best option. We helped Michelle first, then John, next Victor, then me, and finally Jack. But before the last one jumped a big black hand with nails as long as claws, grabbed him by the neck, and pulled him back into the house. We screamed for help because our cell phones had been consumed by fires. Minutes later, the firemen arrived to the area, where we were all crying in despair. We didn't know what had happened to our friend. After a long time, I fade. I wake up in the hospital. My mother was beside me worried. I asked her what had happened to Jack. He just looked at me at sad and told me what had happened. After finding us in that fire, the firemen put out the flames and found Jack's body, mostly with third-degree burns and death. His father had arrived with his other brother a few hours later. At the next day would be his funeral. I cried with the little strength I had, but not exactly because of Jack's death, but because of the creepy figure with red eyes and black body that watched me from the window. And that's it. That's it.
Excellent. I actually enjoyed this story. Did you enjoy writing it, Anna?
Yes, teacher. It's not my specialty, but yes, I have a little inspiration for this history. Yes.
Excellent. Very good. You have a bunch of participations, but there's a couple of days where you had no participation, no?
And no.
But that has been mostly because of your internet and stuff,
Yes.
which I understand. Anna, you have 9.5.
Okay, thank you, teacher.
Excellent. So the last one for today. We have no reading, no grade. We have all of this week, okay? Entonces, ¿quién quiere seguir? Porque si no leen, no tienen calificación. Y solo tenemos esta semana durante clases para hacer las lecturas. Entonces, una persona más por el día de hoy. Chance going out once. The chance going out twice. The chance going out 3. Okay. Santiago Ortega, go ahead.
Just give me a second, please. Me dices que se está trabando mucho.
Ok. ¿Quieres que yo comparta, Santi?
Si puede hacerlo de favor.
Es el que dice Horror Story, right?
Yes, teacher.
Ok.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you a story that calls a tragedy. Once upon a time, there was a boy named Jackson who lived at home with his parents. He liked to go to school, learn and play with his friends. Jackson got up on the day from his bed and saw a letter where it said, "Dear Jackson, I'm your friend Charles. Can we talk in the break class?" Jackson went to school, where every day he saw his friend John, who is a security guard at the entrance of the school. Jackson had classes like every day. He learned a little math, Spanish, and history during recesses. Jackson looked for Charles, who was sitting in front of the swings. Jackson sat to the
Jackson sat to the. Okay, Santi, I believe we heard you.
sorry, teacher. Jackson had classes like every day, learning a little math, Spanish, and history during recess. Jackson looked for Charles, who was sitting in the front of the swings. Jackson sat at the side and they started talking about what happened a few days ago. Charles was his friend since childhood. He was with Jackson and his family in the car, when suddenly the car turned off the road and Jackson's parents died instantly. Charles and Jackson were the only survivors that evening. That day was very difficult for Jackson because he saw his parents die. He only had the grandparents Hannah and Marcus who loved him too much. During those days, Jackson felt sad and lonely, but he always went out to the park where he saw Charles and other children. The grandparent asked Jackson, "How are you doing?" And Jackson told them that he was okay, that he played with his friends Charles and other children. His parents, his grandparents were resolved to hear that, since he had someone to be distracted by what happened that day. After Jackson spoke with Charles at recess, the teacher Mary sent from Jackson to the reception. The teacher Mary asked him how he was doing, which he answered much better thanks to my friend Charles. The teacher looked at Jackson and asked him, "Who is Charles?" Jackson told him that he is his friend since childhood. Mary asked him if she could meet him. Jackson said he will he will give to ask him. So the teacher left Jackson at the living room while she called Jackson's grandparents to ask if they knew about Charles. The grandparents said that he was a friend who always played in the park with him, but they have never met him. The teacher thanked them when she heard this and she hung up. When Mary returned, Jackson was already gone. The teacher ran at the school booth and asked John if he had seen him leave. John told her that Jackson had already gone to the classroom to pick up of his things. When the teacher came to the classroom, there was a letter writer that said, "Charles wants to meet you and is waiting at the reception." The teacher arrived and saw Jackson sitting with a marble in his hand. Mary tells him what happened to you, and Jackson smiled and his eyes turned white. The teacher tried to run away from him. Jackson threw himself on the top of the destroying her head and cutting off her fingers. Um, John was talking with two other security guards. They hear some screams. They decide to go to see what's happening. While John was watching the cameras in the security cabin, the two security guards informed John that the reception door was locked. So one of the guards went to the bedroom to look for a gas extinguisher, while the other tried to bang the door open. The security guard who went to the bedroom found blood stains which led him to a toilet, where he found Mary's fingers. The security guard began to scream, and at the moment he turned and saw Jackson. Jackson asked him if he was okay. The guard told him that he should never that he should leave, did not enter. Jackson said that he should not have been here. Jackson grabs the gas extinguisher, breaks his legs, then the arms, and finally he hangs him, breaking his neck as well. The second guard begins to be worried, but he sees Jackson and says, "What are you doing here, boy?" Jackson tells him that his friend had to relieve himself. Then the other guard opens the door with the gas extinguisher, and when he opens it, he realizes that everything is full of blood. He begins to see drops of blood dripping from the ceiling, and he sees that is the teacher divided into parts. The guard turns to see the child and says, "Don't kill me. I have a family." So then the boy um, replied, "I also had one." Then, with a pen from the desk, he pricks his eyes and cuts the throat. And cuts the throat. John sees Jackson leaving the reception in the cameras in his and he smiled at him. John scared Jackson locks him up in the cabin and begins to surround him with gasoline. At the end, he takes out a match and tells John that he thanks for being his friend and sets the cabin on fire. When returning to the house, Jackson sees his grandparents. The grandparents see him with blood stains and dirt. The grandparents ask Jackson what happened to him. Jackson said that he fell in a bicycle in a puddle with thorns. The grandparents told him that everything was going to be fine. Jackson went to the shower, and at night his parents and he went to see his aunt Annie and his uncle Tom. But on a curve, they suffered a car accident. Only Jackson had been the one sole survivor again. Many days, weeks passed. The police investigate what happened at the school, but nobody knew anything. So they decided to leave the case unsolved. But what they didn't know is that someone has been investigating the case. That person is Andrew, Jackson's older stepbrother. Jackson had gone to live with his uncles far away from there. The uncle adopted him as another child without knowing what they had actually done. To be continued.
Excellent. So tell me, how did you feel writing this story?
Mm, I don't know, like I really don't know how I felt. So it was like mm, a strange,
Mhm.
but it was nice. I know that it can be better, but okay, it's okay.
Well, you participated a lot this month. You were always very active. You also would turn in for corrections in your story often. So, Santi, you have 10.
Okay, thanks, teacher.
Excellent, Santi. So, guys, I want everyone's stories up for today. Todos quiero que tengan sus historias de arriba hoy. Ya tengo registro de qué está o no en su drive. Entonces, por favor, pónganse a subir sus historias. Si no están arriba, no las califico. Y los que faltaron de pasar a leer su historia hoy, tienen la próxima clase para poderla leer. ¿Ok?
Okay.
Que de momento de los que estamos aquí, los que me faltan, Me falta Arad, Alex y Joseph, que se le fue la luz. Y faltan más también la próxima clase de gente que no entró el día de hoy. Entonces, súper importante que me lean sus historias la próxima clase. Okay, guys.
Okay, teacher.
Excellent. Don't forget to put everything up.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Have a wonderful day. Tengan bonito Día de Muertos.
Igualmente.
Disfruten. Espero hayan tenido un gran fin de semana y hayan disfrutado su Halloween.